The National Union of Mine Workers, NUM, says it's now considering legal options after Mineral Resources Minister Min Zwane's decision to temporarily halt the implementation of the new mining charter. Last week, it was announced the charter wouldn't be implemented until a court rules on its legal application after the Chamber of Mines applied for an urgent interdict to overturn the charter. And the case will be heard in September. The union says it's disappointed in Zwane's decision to put the charter on hold, saying he's buckled under pressure at the expense of workers. And joining us in studio, Adil Nchabaleng, a Transform RSA president, and Thabo Modau, Sanko Regional and Mining representative. Thanks, gentlemen, for your time. I don't know which emoji you can use, sad face or the one with the pouring eyes, with the latest developments in the mining charter. I've had a chat, though, with a friend who's in the mining sector, saying that the broad approach of the mining charter is problematic primarily to black African-owned mines, and there are those who are thriving in this space. Adil, in your view, is it discriminatory in a sense?
No, actually, to my knowledge, good evening. To my knowledge, the mining charter has not discriminated against black owners. I mean, how will it do that when it actually seeks to entrench the empowerment of previously disempowered individuals? Black people in general have never had access in terms of a mining industry and sector. And if you have several players that feel that the particular charter itself is actually, against or going against the principle of empowering black people, that is a founded, an unfounded statement. Because if you look at what the charter seeks to actually achieve, it says 50.1% must be actually given over in terms of the new applications for rights, must be actually considered for previously, disempowered individuals and communities and people. So how will the charter now disadvantage black owners?
Yeah, I think it's in the financing model of how some of these mines were acquired, that you had reliance on the Public Investment Corporation, the IDC, etc. And it's a loan agreement that you have to repay. So now if there's an added burden of having to give 1% of your output to the communities that you're servicing, you're already under pressure. What's your view, Mr. Modau?
Look, I think, Cindy, the charter, if you read it very well, it also says it rewards those who have met the targets. Therefore, in this instance, ordinarily, black owners would then be rewarded in a number of areas. But when we are saying we need transformation, we're also saying we need the mineral resources beneath the soil to be shared amongst communities and amongst workers. But maybe we must put this point here. The position of NUM, it is very much welcome. We are also disappointed, Cindy, not on the minister, but disappointed on the Chamber of Mines by actually interdict, because the minister did not willingly say, I am stopping the implementation of this charter. But what we want to caution against, Cindy, whilst we are coming to other issues, is the issue of factionalized debates, Cindy. I think we have an issue then, Chabele. You see, the opposition to this charter, it is not an opposition to Zwane. It is not an opposition to President Zuma. In my view, it is the opposition and a war on all South Africans. Because the charter, it is now reduced. Even those people who have been saying, why is COSATU quiet when workers are going to benefit? Why is AMCU quiet? Why are all those people who have been advocating for shareholder schemes of workers quiet in the mining industry? Why are the so-called pro-socialist other political parties quiet on the matter? Therefore, we are saying here, we are strongly supporting the view and the position that the NUM has taken. And as communities, we want to join them, Cindy.
All right, I'm sure that is something that Red Joseph Mutsietsi, a National Union of Mine Workers, a Deputy President, would like to hear. Mutsietsi, thanks so much for your time. The legal action that you intend on taking, you say that you're disappointed with Min Zwane's decision to halt the charter so far. What choice did he have with the backlash from the mining chamber, or Chamber of Mines, rather?
I beg your pardon. Thank you very much for the opportunity. As NUM, we have not said that we'll take legal action against Zwane. as a minister, because the mining charter itself is not a bad document, but the international study about how governments in other countries are sharing the minerals than as the earth. You go to Tanzania. Tanzania is at 60%. Botswana is 51%, and Zimbabwe is 51%. We go to Ghana. Also, Ghana is partnership with Anglo Ashanti. Ashanti state-owned mining company in Ghana. In fact, this 30% is very little if you compare the international study, especially in African countries. But what we are saying, FNUM, is that our problem is where then it's individuals in this 14% that they are going to be sharing, individuals that we don't understand where they come from. If this share of 14% was for a state, it is the state that is getting this share in order to mobilize the resources for the transformation of the economy on behalf of the people, we would be happy. But the charter as it is, we don't think that when capitalists are left with 70% and we only as African in our continent with our minerals demanding 30%, and we are told that the document must be taken to court. Why Anglo Ashanti? Because it forms part of Chamber of Mines. Why these companies are not taking Botswana to court with 51%? Why?
Yeah, Remotete, I just want to come back to the NUM seemingly being non-committal. You're almost half in, half out without a clear decision. You're saying that you have the issue around the preferential shares of 14 being set aside. But are you in support, on principle, of the new mining charter?
We support the charter in principle. We support the charter.
Maybe on the 14%, and if our interpretation is wrong, we should be told. You are saying 8% to the community. You are saying 8% to the workers, which was not there in the previous chart. That's clarity that you are giving. But when you look at Africans and people in general, you are then saying the 14%, there's African males, there's African youth, there's African women. There are entrepreneurs within these communities, and there are consortiums that are existing there. So there's a young person who is into the mining sector. So are we saying within this 14%, we should provide more clarity that 2% will go towards women, 2% will go towards the disabled, and so forth? Because in my view, the 14% still remains within the African communities, African people. Therefore, and many other legislations speak in that context. You don't have to necessarily clarify that. So I think the stance on the 14%, not unless there's a misunderstanding there.
Yeah. Is it a delaying tactic, though, if you wanted to get the prescribed, or rather the list of beneficiaries and even consortiums that are going to participate? At this stage, there's no deal on the table necessarily from mining A to community B. That we really just halting a process that should be expedited.
Look, the mining charter, the mining chamber has always promised that it will take the chamber, it will take the minister to court. This is not the first time. I mean, as early as last year in November 27th, you know, the Chamber of Mines issued out a statement saying that they are going to challenge the new charter that the Minister Zwane will be actually pronouncing in 2017. So you are looking at a situation where you have a chamber which has existed for over 130 odd years. It has tendencies by which it is not interested in any program that will benefit the people. The mining, Chamber of Mines has always had and held the legacy of being the 90% dominant player within the industry, and has seen itself as actually the rights owners, the mining companies, as well as the regulator. So whatever government puts out there and gives us a prescription, the Chamber of Mines will never agree fully, because they feel highly entitled to this particular minerals. They feel that they have made all the necessary investment over the years. So the application to stop the charter from being implemented has been done deliberately. It is not the process by which we must say whether Minister Zwane is buckling up. In my view, Minister Zwane has not buckled up in terms of the application. If you saw what the affidavit, actually the funding affidavit and the application to stop the mining charter from being implemented, it states very clearly that the minister must stop the implementation of the charter. If not, he must be actually interdicted to appear within a period, I think, of 48 hours. They must do an urgent application to appear at court. So it was a wise decision by Minister Zwane to stop the implementation and saying, give me 2 months to come back with a response so that court can hear this matter and ventilate it correctly to the point where it is satisfactory to all the players.
Yeah, I mean, even with the National Union of Mine Workers saying that the same has been done in neighboring countries, if not around the world, in indigenization of programs to benefit the people of that nation. And yet we don't see a mass exodus of investors in those countries. Why then is this being thrown almost as a boogeyman in our faces?
You see here, Cindy, it's two things. One, it is deliberate because I think what the gentleman from NUM mentioned, he mentioned some companies which exist in South Africa. They don't have a problem with a 51% in Botswana, but they have a problem with a 30% here. In fact, not a 30%. They have a problem with a 4% increase there. But secondly, Cindy, you must look at this thing within the broader context of transformation. And I have a view here. It could also be about setting a precedent, because if you successfully challenge this charter, would you ever have transformation in the financial sector? I don't think so. Would you ever have transformation in the tourism sector? I don't think so. Therefore, it is a worrying factor. And I would not want to go to, you see, in South Africa today, it has become fashionable. You say the minister has a power in terms of the legislation, in terms of the constitution. When that power is exercised, so when you lose debate in South Africa, you must go to courts which are not transformed. You see why I'm sitting as communities who are very happy that, and want the NUM to be firm when they speak on this matter, who are happy that they have the resources to go to courts. As a representative of communities, I would have wanted to go to court day one. But would I have been able to go there? Would we afford advocates to go there? We would not be. So here I'm saying it could also be setting, the point I'm raising, it could be setting a precedent that you are never going to transform. Those who are in positions of power, they must not factionalize debate. Whether come December, some of them win or some of them they lose, Cindy, the reality is that you are not going to be able to transform this country.
Yeah, let's bring it back to Mr. Montsietsi, in the sense that if you're not mobilizing and rallying around the charter to effect a radical economic transformation, at least this is from SANCO, that you yourself have become the problem.
Yeah, well, we think that the transformation agenda must be intensified. That the 30% must actually, we have to stand by this 30%. If these people go to court and win the case, it will mean that we have to look into the transformation of judiciary system in this country. Because like I have been saying, these companies that are operating in South Africa, they are operating in Ghana, they are operating in Tanzania, they are operating in Botswana, they are operating in New Guinea. There they are sharing with government. In Zimbabwe, Impala Platinum, which is here, in Zimbabwe, Mugabe has told them that they have to build a refinery for beneficiation of the people of Zimbabwe. After they have handed over 51%, he said they must build refinery. There's a big refinery there in Zimbabwe, which is new. It has been built, it has started operation. So in South Africa, they want to undermine the government of South Africa and the people of South Africa to take them to court, only because they know that the judges in this country, most of them, are the previous judges that are just holding on the agenda of the apartheid system, which undermines the black majority government in this country.
Yeah, so what is NUM going to do? So what I'm asking is that, are you going to, in your numbers, be it whatever demonstration you want to make, to give a sense that this is something that you support and it is necessary for this country? As you're saying, it's been done, citing all these wonderful examples everywhere else, but there's a reluctance to do so in this country.
No, let me say that I can't take decision alone here in the media interview. that we will have demonstration and so on. But from where I am standing, it is the view of the union that this 30% is not a crisis. It is the right thing to do. The only thing that we have a problem in is the 40% that is given to people that we don't know how this will be distributed to them. But anyway, the 30% is fine. We support the charter.
All right, just please stay on the line. Adil, your view.
I think, look, we're getting conflicting messages. The statement has been already released by NUM under the head of transformation, Levoyo. And he very clearly said it that NUM is looking at taking on the process by which it will depose the application by the Chamber of Mines and in support of the implementation of the mining charter. So I think this clarity must be there. You know, it looks like NUM itself within its own ranks is not united on a position or on a view as to what to do going forward. But in this case, we have to look at it from a different perspective. What is it that currently is being opposed within the charter, which we actually need to start ventilating clearly and look at it? Right now, the application in terms of put before court, it says that the minister does not have powers. He has done what they call executive overreach. He doesn't have the necessary powers to amend or change the mining charter as it was already gazetted in 2010. Whereas the same charter has been amended twice. One, it was in 2004, and then the other one, it was in 2010. Amended on the basis that, particularly in 2010, that the mining companies, the same, mining companies, were refusing to implement and to follow through according to the preambles as well as the intentions of the charter. If you look at the charter, let's go back into what the elements of the BEE charter that the mining charter contains. One, it talks about the reporting coming out of the mining companies. Two, it talks about the scheme of ownership, shareholding scheme as well as ownership scheme. Three, it talks about housing and living conditions of the people in the mining sector. Fourth, it talks about the procurement as well as community development. Fifth part of it, it talks about the aspect of employment equity, and then it talks about the human resources development. It talks about mining community development. It talks about sustainable community development as well as beneficiation. In those 9 particular elements of the charter, why is it that we have still till today an industry owners that are still resistant towards fulfilling the most basic? Let me give you now a scenario and a situation here. You go to all the mining towns except for the previously empowered mining towns like Johannesburg, Welkom, Bloemfontein, Kimberley, all of the previous particularly white-owned, white communities were all empowered. But when it comes to communities that are now black and dominantly where the mining companies are at, the mining companies are refusing to have an obligation unto those cities and towns. They don't have anything to do with the villages. You find
they shut up shop without rehabilitation. Remotsi, just a quick response in the sense that there's conflicting views on the step that NUM is going to take going forward.
There's no conflicting views here. This is the position of NUM. That comrade should not actually try to say that NUM has conflicting views. If you go to the media as the head of transformation and put a position, that position should be scrutinized by leadership, and we don't conflict with him. We agree that we accept the charter. I have said that we accept the charter, but we are giving signs of how the charter should be. Actually,
yeah, but you're not going to take the chamber to court. You're not necessarily going to interdict what the chamber has done so far.
No, there is no decision of anyone taking the chamber to court. We are going to state as NEC on the 3 and 4 of this month, and the issue of the charter is going to be top on the agenda. The National Executive Committee of NUM is the only structural making decision that can take chamber to court. It can't be taken by an individual within NUM.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Joseph Mutsietsi, he is the National Union of Mine Workers Deputy President. Just in summary, of course, now this matter will be heard in September. That's almost close to the end of the year. We're probably going to sit with other consultation processes going forward. When, in your view, will the day dawn where transformation is generally accepted as a collective, as a South African people that sees the need for this particular transition?
Cindy, I think where I'm sitting, the government, you see the stick approach, it is what works now. And we as communities and workers and all those who are affected, I think we need to be firm in supporting government, especially when it's us who have been raising these issues. I'm saying, look, if you want to analyze the charter, let's ask a question, who must support government in this instance? You had fees must fall. I made this example. And all of us who agree education must be free. The charter there sets aside 1% from the 5% leviable amount towards historically black institutions. Is that not addressing South Africa's needs? It is. Therefore, it means those advocates of free education and those who are in the forefront of fees must fall have got to come and support this charter. Yep. Entrepreneurs have got to come. But what then needs to happen moving forward, Cindy? The NUM takes a firm stance. As communities, we have been very clear. You go to Emalahleni and various areas, in fact, we're in constant communication. When the minister goes to court, we are going to their operations. That's the language that they understand better. Transformation in this country will come when we begin to address issues in the manner in which we address the apartheid government, because that's where we are. We can't today, because of political expediency, deny that the economy is in the hands of the few. Just because there are few proxies who are benefiting there, Cindy, we're not going to stand to that. Therefore, we'll take a point where we mobilize as communities, and that will happen when the minister goes to court.
Okay. So this is something that is feasible in your view, despite what we've heard from the Chamber of Mines. You're saying that this is something that is necessary. We've got other examples where it's been implemented, except for in South Africa. And the reason being?
Look, the reason being the fact that, you cannot keep on delaying the process to transformation. Because at the end of the day, we're still talking about the 30%. When is South Africans going to ever own even a significant share of this particular economy, given in the foreseeable future? If the current tendencies by the operators, by the license owners, and by the industry is that they continuously undermine the standing position of the black minority and communities. So in our view as Transform RSA, we have been taking consultation and advice, and we're of a view that at this point and juncture, we should enter into this debate and fray, particularly in the legal and the judicial aspect of it, where we will be putting out an application in deposing this particular matter, particularly coming from the Chamber of Mines, because we've been involved through the process of consultation. We know the tricks that are played by the mining industry. We know the players themselves that are actually currently delaying the implementation process. In this case, who loses most is the black people, is the communities, as well as the underdevelopment of our own economy.
Mr. Chabaleng, we're going to leave it there. Adil Chabaleng is Transform RSA President, and we have Thabo Modau. He is the South African National Civic Organization Regional Regional Person.
Regional Secretary.
Regional Secretary Joseph Motsietsi, NUM Deputy President. Up next, the beautiful game with Len Muleko. From myself and the crew, be abundantly blessed. We'll see you again tomorrow evening. Ciao for now.